بكل
Yesterday,
تشكيل
I
الوزارة
was honored to meet all the questions of the House of Representatives and Parliament with regards to the new cabinet, specifically with regards to the formation of new committees. Of course, I was keen at the beginning of the meeting to thank all my colleagues from the previous government and cabinet for all their efforts over the last period of time. Also, some of the new ministers that have joined the cabinet are new to such positions of ministries. Of course, we as a nation, as a state, work together united as one team, even though each minister is concerned with his own ministry, but at the end of the day, the team works towards the positive development for the Egyptian citizen as a result of the coordination between the different ministries. This is the most important thing. The most important issues are usually related to coordination between several ministries. It's not just up to a specific minister or ministry, but each and every ministry is part of the bigger picture. Sometimes we take decisions and suddenly, after a few months, we realized that the decision, for example, was not implemented on the ground, and hence we work towards, at this time, the most important thing is to continue following up on all decisions taken. The main point and role of the ministries and ministers is to have continued follow-up and development for them to take the decisions needed to actually see the issues being implemented on the ground. It is very important to see results. For example, if we meet on Sunday and we see that we need a decision to be taken, we must take this decision as soon as possible on Wednesday when we have our meeting, so we can quickly take all the necessary measures to implement these decisions on the ground. I also spoke to the members of parliament about our program for the next 3 years. Our program is aimed towards the Egyptian citizen. We aim to have each and every minister to have a clear role for each ministry and minister, to make sure we follow up on the job being done by each of the ministries. They will be constant following up on a monthly basis at least to see what is being implemented of the government's decisions on the ground. We do not have the luxury of time. We have to move quickly for the Egyptian citizen to feel the progression with regards to issues that affect his or her life. We are focused on local files and the needs of citizens. We have 4 main approaches. Each and every one of them is to be translated into projects on the ground. Some of the questions have asked why the government's upcoming program is for 3 years. What we've done is we have put a vision for up to 2030. However, in light of the challenges globally and regionally. We cannot plan such long-term plans. More realistically, we have to work on shorter-term basis. So we must put a plan for at least 3 years, which is half the presidential period of 6 years. So for the first half, or for the next 3 years, we will be focusing on the projects and local files that and programs that were announced. So it was very important for us. We had to focus, at least in the very first 3 years, on the programs that can be felt by the citizen and meet the needs of the citizens. However, this doesn't mean that after the first year we cannot update, for example, these programs if we need to. So the government needs to keep its eyes on a certain time, which we can finish as many projects as possible. The most two important issues being dealt with now by the Egyptian citizen is the electricity shortage as well as controlling market prices. And these are the two main issues that we will be focusing on in the upcoming period. And another very important thing that I spoke about was the constant need for communication between all the state institutions, the availability as well of members of the Egyptian Parliament, constant communication with the Parliament as well, whether it's the higher or lower house. The ministers must be in constant contact between the members of Parliament as the representatives of the citizens. Of course, this is very important. Another issue that I spoke about is the need to communicate with all the sources of media. Each and every ministry must have a good media team that is able to transmit the needed messages and get the messages across to the citizens in advance, because when we usually explain an issue to the citizen in advance, the citizen is more cooperable instead of them being taken by surprise or resenting any decisions. So we should always try and speak in advance of some of the challenges and our ideas for solutions through the media, the different media outlets, to keep the citizens well informed. I also spoke about the need to follow up on the recommendations of the national dialogue as well that has been held. Some of these recommendations were split into certain areas. Each and every minister or group of ministers will start to sit with these committees, look at the recommendations and try to implement them and embody them into programs to be implemented on the ground. These recommendations are very important because they have come out of different dialogue between the different sectors of all the Egyptian society as a whole. And this, of course, enables the government to communicate directly with the citizen and all the representatives of the Egyptian citizen. The most important thing is to implement the government's 3-year plan, and we hope that the first stage, the first 100 days are very important, but however we don't want to wait for 100 days. We want to, throughout the first 30 days at least, we want the citizens to feel the changes on the ground and how we are really working towards a positive dealing with issues that are priorities for Egyptian citizens. These are some of the most important messages that I spoke to some of the ministers about, and we will be focused on our 3-year program and with all the different multifaceted parties to this program, of course, for the Egyptian citizen to see the realities on the ground. And not to take too much of your time, I welcome your questions as we are trying to keep our communication open. So let me take a question. Hani Nahas, I would like to thank you very much for this press conference to allow us to ask questions. I saw the first communique, and we can see a strong focus on industry, education, and health. However, if we are going to speak about industry, for example, lots and lots of Egyptians are waiting for updates with regards to industrial sector, the reopening of factories. Also, the education sector is very, very important when it comes to the minds of the Egyptian citizens. We have had 2 changes, and we want to see what we are planning for the education sector. The government understands the need to develop this sector, and we would like to know how we plan to do so. Finally, sir, since we're going to speak about the health sector as well, the Egyptian citizen needs to know how the different treatment of different sectors in society will be undertaken. From next week, God willing, we will see the first meetings of human development experts, as well as the industry committee. And I will be keen to attend the first meetings of each of these groups and delegates, and I will be following them up. Let me tell you, I'll speak generally. These 2 files, health and education, are extremely important. The state has exerted its utmost effort over the last 5 or 6 years in upgrading the curriculum and changing them. And this was done by the Minister Dr. Tariq Shawqi, and when Dr. Tariq was changed, we did not change. We continued with the program. The program continues regardless of the minister in charge. This development indeed occurred. Now, our main focus is to put the different channels needed to implement these updates to the curriculum on the ground. Even if the people change, the system put in place, tactical changes are the only changes you will witness. We might just need to speed up the process. However, with regards to the health sector, this is very, very important. We are hoping to work on this sector to put together the national medical insurance plan. We've already started in several governorates. Today I was speaking to the Minister of Health and Population about the need to announce the new governorates that will have the health insurance implemented in. Another important issue that I want to talk about, and I will speak transparently here, we spent hundreds of millions with regards to developing infrastructure of hospitals and other infrastructure. Our main problem as a government, and this is not just the Egyptian government problem, but the governments all around the world, is the sustainable, successful development and running of this infrastructure after it is finished. Our main problem is how to get this infrastructure to continue sustainably working, and in 4 or 5 years when you go visit this hospital, to see the same amount of staff, to see the same efficiency in the service provided. This is a major challenge for the government. So how can we get the private sector, when it comes to providing sustainable services, sustainable quality service in these industries? How will this happen? Will this be at the expense of the layman on the street? Indeed, it will not be. These hospitals are geared to ensure that citizens receive the same level of care for the less privileged, just like the more, the richer rather, patient. So, what we need to see now is the provision of treatment for both the able or unable to pay for these treatments. This is how we are hoping to advance. Also, we are focusing on different human cadres, as well as international hospitals, for example, that are being invited to come and work with us to allow us to work our hospital systems in an efficient manner. And today we are trying to reach equality between the poor and the rich with regards to patients at any of the Egyptian hospitals, to ensure. What I also want to tell you about, the minute we are able to have our health insurance in each and every hospital, in each and every government in the country, any citizen, whether rich or poor, will be able to have full access to any medical treatment needed or procedure as well. Till I am ensured that the 27 governors are covered in the health insurance, and this is why we need the private sector in this sector. Mr. Prime Minister, after the new cabinet was formed, can we ask you how the new ministers were selected? Let me tell you how a new minister is selected. Obviously, all the institutions in the state work, for example, with the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister will nominate a few candidates, then he will collaborate with other state institutions to see the recommendations as well of all the candidates that have been nominated. So we either nominate people from within the government or without. So the people that are put in front of the Prime Minister usually come from different ministries, and we see their previous experience. But what matters to me the most is the capability of putting together or putting forward a very clear vision for his or her ministry that will be allocated to him or her. And this, for me, as the Prime Minister, is the most important thing. Of course, I look at previous experience, etc. The issue of certificates, are they true or not? Of course, and I am telling you these certificates, of course, are verified and true. However, are they recognized by the Egyptian Higher Education Institute? This is another issue. However, is this a prerequisite for any minister? No, this is not. More importantly for me, the Egyptian law says that any minister must have a tertiary education and must have any other certificates post-grad are extras. They're not important. But the main important thing that we look for, and let me be extremely clear and transparent, the most important thing is to bring someone who is capable in light of the current challenges being witnessed in the country, someone who is aware of the ministry that they will be given and is aware of the challenges and problems in his or her ministry and the vision that he or she has on how to deal with them, and has a vision that is not traditional, to be able to think outside the box, provide new ideas, and is able to deal with the new issues and the challenges or problems in his ministry. And this is how I choose a possible minister and how he will be able. Of course, practical experience on the ground is very, very important for me as well, because sometimes here I'm not choosing sides. Sometimes the academic side is not sufficient on its own, and also practical private sector experience is also on its own not enough. Usually I want a combination of the two sides, and I need someone with a vision and ability to deal quickly with the issues in his ministry. This is what we were looking for. We are a government of challenges. Therefore, I need my ministers from day one to be able to deal with his ministry, to be able to work and be able to communicate effectively and start dealing with problems and solving them quickly. Of course, I'm speaking now about the Minister of Education. I know exactly, he spoke to me and he said he has untraditional methods to deal with shortages, problems with regards to teachers and schools, infrastructure, facilities, and parallel educational centers and private lessons. And he assured me he will be able to deal with these challenges and these issues. And of course, this is how we choose ministers that would be able and capable to deal with problems in his ministry. This is the philosophy that we follow when we choose new ministers. We don't have the luxury of time, like I said. We don't have the luxury to tell people to wait anymore. We need someone who is efficient and quick. So this is the philosophy of how we choose ministers, the cabinet, and how they have clear vision and a clear plan to move forward as soon as possible. And more importantly, of course, how we will see the process of the ministers individually, and we will constantly be following up on their different portfolios to see their efficiency and success. And if we see that someone is unable or not succeeding, we have no problem to change the person or the minister.
متى ستقوم الحكومة بسداد كافة المستحقات المالية للشركات الأجنبية العاملة في مجال
When will the Egyptian government be able to pay off the international companies working in the petroleum sector working in Egypt? Let me tell you, we have already paid about from 20 to 25% of the due fees, and I spoke to the new Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources to sit and follow up on the money that is owed to all these international companies, and he is now following up with these companies on the monies that they are owed. The most important thing for us is to pay off these companies and to start new scheduling as well. This also happened in 2016, and in 2016 we had already owned over $6 million, and it took us about 4 years to pay it off. But now they know that the Egyptian state is capable of paying off what it owes to these companies, and this is what we are very keen to achieve within the first month of him holding his new position as the minister, to give me feedback with regards to how we will pay off what they owe. I wanted to ask you about your new post on top of your position as the Prime Minister, but also to deal with the ministries as well, and speak of the need to quickly get into the digitalization system and go online with regards to all services between the government and the citizen. This is a very important file. Today, of course, today we have decreased the amount of employees in the public sector. And we are now facing another challenge where we have specialized cadres now that are missing, and this can only be done in a simple manner in order to develop the different sectors in our society. We have said that we will employ every year over 30,000 teachers, but how can we guarantee that these teachers will have place, and what qualifications will these teachers have before we employ them? Because these indeed will influence the future of this country, as they are in charge of the future generations and our children. And this, of course, is very important for the future of Egypt. That's why we are speaking about a very important issue, how to restructure the government. And this, we've already started doing this through the merging of different ministries together. This amalgamation of different portfolios from different ministries is very important. How to get this study on the ground, how to ensure that each and every ministry does the work asked of it.
كنت عايز اسال سيادتك اذا كنا نعتبر ان الزياده السكانيه المفترضه يعني واحده من التحديات
If we're going to speak about the population increase challenge, which is a very important challenge being faced in Egypt, does the government have a plan to face this population growth? And of course, you know, some citizens are worried or speaking about an increase in electricity prices. Is this a possibility before the end of this year? I already said this before. We have no other choice but to fix the Egyptian economy and financial sphere over the last year and a half is to gradually move with the prices of some services, but more importantly for me, I need to first deal with the issue of the electricity outages as well as other services that the citizen is not satisfied with. Of course, sooner or later, over the next year and a half or so, very slowly and gradually, we will be increasing prices just to bridge the gap between supply and demand. 1 liter of solar is 20 Egyptian pounds. Today it is being sold by 10 Egyptian pounds, which is half its price. This doesn't mean I want to reach 20 Egyptian pounds per liter. However, I want to gradually at least increase just so I have some balance and to be able to subsidize in a rational or effective manner as a state. This is what we're working towards over the next period of time. But first, I need the citizen to feel that the issues that the citizen has been complaining about first get resolved. I need to deal with this issue first before taking steps to deal with the issue of subsidies. We tried over the last year and a half, especially in light of the global challenges, to continue subsidizing services as much as possible. However, with more global challenges, we have tried to put off decreasing our subsidies. We have tried to take these services and pay for them. However, today and very gradually and over a long period of time, to try and compensate for some of these subsidies, because the subsidies are too big. The subsidization has to be at a reasonable amount for the state to manage to pay. With regards to the population issue, let me tell you, our capacity and capability as a state, always we are asked, why do we take population growth negatively? Even though it should be an advantage. However, we need a period as any country or any nation to first deal with the challenges already existing and to be able to provide sufficiently for future generations before encouraging further growth of our population. For example, like what China did. China actually took decisions to control their population growth, and after they dealt with their economic issues, they now have gone back and changed policies with regards to population growth. Here in Egypt, we have a very important challenge, which is our natural resources. For example, water. Water is a very important natural resource. How can you imagine that the same amount of water we have been receiving in Egypt is the same for tens and tens of years? Over 60 or 70 years ago, since 1952, we celebrate, of course, the 72nd anniversary of this revolution, where Egyptian population was less than 20 million. Today, we receive the same amount of water that these 20 million people received. So agricultural land was well catered for over the last 70 years, and we were able to feed such a population and provide food security for this number. But how can we work with the same quantity of water and have it be distributed over 115 million people instead of 20 million people? So this is a great challenge. We're working on a great number of projects on water recycling and water security, and we spoke about the need to secure Egypt's water needs as soon as possible. But let's think, if we reach 150 million or 200 million people in Egypt, what will we do? What is the solution? We need a period of controlling the population growth to allow the Egyptian state to deal with the challenges already being faced by the current number of citizens. We have shortages, for example, in classrooms or hospitals or other services. We can at least deal with these issues first if I can just control population growth for a certain period of time. After that, as a state, I can then go back to allow normal population growth. Most importantly, the education sector. This increase of Egyptians, do you see the education being received by these numbers of people? How will I be able to cater for such a large number of students? This is why we need, for a period of time, to deal with the challenges first and services improvement. So at the end of the day, for a newborn citizen, at least they will have better services and be of added value to the state instead of be more pressure or a challenge to the state. We as Egypt need some time to deal with this issue beforehand.
سؤال يا فندم خاص بمسألة مهمة لم يأتي برنامج الحكومة عليها بالتفصيل، هو أتى عليها ولكن نحتاج إلى عمق.
My question is with regards to the vision of the government with regards to foreign borrowing, and how what vision does the government have in order to deal with foreign borrowing. Of course, we have a very clear vision to control the both domestic and international debt. The central bank will recently speak about December 2022 figures. March 2024, we've seen a decrease in our foreign debt, which is very good. And God willing, after the 30th of June, you will see further decrease in our foreign debt, and I guarantee this. This, of course, is a result of all the reform and economic reform that the state has embarked on, and all the foreign direct investments as well that have occurred successfully over the last period. We have a clear target in the next 3 years how to decrease our debt, both foreign and domestic, next year and the following and the third, over the 3 years. We have a vision up to 2030 as well, how we will decrease this debt. But we are working on a 3-year plan till 2026-27. This is what I want to confirm. A very important issue is the majority of these numbers this debt is a result of things that were needed by the state. For example, wheat, fuel, etc. This is what the state did very clearly. We could not predict the global challenges that occurred, and hence, when I said we waited for 1.5 years without increasing prices, how did we manage this? Obviously, we were borrowing in order to secure fuel, and I didn't increase prices for 1.5 years. I had to borrow money. Same thing with food, and this was part of the challenge. In addition to now, we are still in a developing phase. We are developing and building a state. So the state needs a lot of work in order for it to be suitable for the Egyptian citizen. Today, of course, just to give an example, today, just to go from place to place in Cairo, how much time does it take? With the infrastructure of the roads and the development we've seen with roads and bridges, how do you see traffic, for example? The road network in Egypt was totally different before the revolution. After the revolution, 2-3 hours just to go from one point to another in Cairo. Isn't this also a cost? Wasn't this fuel being burnt? And pollution as well? And time being wasted just to get from one point to another? As a result of the infrastructural development with roads, we no longer have this problem. The Egyptian state still has a lot to do and work towards with regards to its development. But Egypt is capable of this. But first, we need to be aware and know all the challenges over the years need to be resolved. However, this is not easy because they're being resolved amongst other challenges as well. So we are trying to work in a balanced manner. The plan is totally clear and our aims are clear, and we are working towards dealing with these challenges and our debt. The new Egyptian government's priorities spoke about the controlling of market prices and the challenges of price control and inflation. What plan do you have with regards to saving the Egyptian economy? I hope this question can show people the amount of challenges being faced. Yesterday I spoke about this.
خليني اقولها يعني احنا محدش فينا كان اعتقد مساحه ممكن يعني هقولها تاني قبل الازمه او الحرب الظالمه اللي موجوده في غزه.
Before the Gaza war, none of us would have ever imagined
هيحصل حاجه زي كده
something like this would happen and its repercussions,
كده ويكون تداعياتها سلبيه شديده.
its negative repercussions on Egypt would reach this state.
لازم نتعامل
However, we have to deal with these challenges and developments, even though we had no plan for them since we could not even imagine them.
تاني انا باكد عليها يعني احنا النهارده كدوله
Today, as a state,
اتقالت وهقولها واكررها انا قلتها ما هو اتقالت لما تاخدوا فلوس
we've been offered
راس الحكمه والصندوق النقدي والبنك الدولي والكلام ده كله وادفعوها قريب لموضوع الكهرباء وخلصوها. لكن احنا كحكومه النهارده
as a government, we have to plan in advance
وانا حاططها
and keep in mind different scenarios.
باللفظ انا مش بقول فشل بس السيناريو الاسود ماذا لو الحرب دي استمرت؟ ماذا لو حصل
What
توسيع
if
وابتدت تدخل فيها دول اخرى جوه المنطقه؟ طب تداعيات الكلام ده ايه هتبقى على
we have to deal with these challenges? How will they affect us as a country? Will this affect our prices? Will this affect fuel, for example?
وضع خطوط سيناريوهات للتعامل مع هذا الموضوع. ده اللي احنا عاملينه.
This is my question.
عشان كده بنبقى لما بنقول
So today, when I say
مواردنا
we are going to put our resources in a certain way,
يبقى دايما نحط
we always
السيناريو الاسود.
put the worst case scenario first, because over the last 2 years we've seen
حتى حاجات ممكن
how external
انها تحصل لا ممكن تحصل.
improbabilities can affect us.
اتعامل مع هذا الموضوع واضع السيناريوهات بتاعتي على هذا الشكل. فعشان كده زي
So I have to keep these in mind.
شغلي الشاغل في موضوع التضخم النهارده.
My issue with the
ازاي ان انا
issue of inflation, for example, this was a very important issue.
كان طبعا
Aside from the
نتيجه للازمه بتاعت
foreign currency
عدم القدره على توفير الدولار مش بقت
shortages,
المصانع ما كانتش قادره تجيب مستلزمات الانتاج.
industries were unable to import what they needed because of the foreign currency shortages. But today, thank God, their industries are now working at 100% capacity because they're able to import what they need with regards to material and raw materials. This on its own, without any policing or interference, has affected demand and supply. And once again, when companies compete against each other, especially with regards to food commodities, when they compete, then they decrease the prices to have a sufficient supply for the demand available.
ولكن معاها اليات الضبط والرقابه وده اللي انا اكدت عليه مع الساده الوزراء المعنيين ازاي ان احنا
And of course we will be following up on the markets and policing market prices. Final question, please, so I can wrap up.
موجودين مع بعض هنبقى بصوره دايما.
There is a shortage with lots of medicine in the market. How is the cabinet going to deal with this issue? The medical and pharmaceutical sector is made up of a large private sector.
ولكن هو الجزء الأكبر من هذا القطاع هو قطاع
What we need now is the pricing of medicine in Egypt. The government is very, very keen to keep prices of medicine stable, and we interfered before to keep prices of certain medicines low. As you know, of course, Egyptian produced medicine is very, very affordable. This is why sometimes we've seen lots of Egyptian pharmaceutical products and medicine being given overseas illegally. So,
احنا كنا قادرين
here in Egypt, we were capable
مع شركات
to
الادويه الخاص ان احنا بنصرف
work with the
الدواء
private
عليه.
sector.
لكن في الاخر
But
الدواء بيحتاج
now that
مادة
medicine,
خام
the raw material of medicines
صناعة الدواء
have
بتبقى
also increased and they are being imported.
دول محددة بالاسم
And there are certain countries
المواد الخام
that provide these raw materials for medicines all around the world, not just in Egypt. They come from certain countries. And obviously this is bought by foreign currency. We were able to provide these companies with the official US dollar rates. Today, however, when now the foreign currency in Egypt has become different, so today now when I produce medicine I'm losing. So what we did now and what we've agreed with them, that some medicines will start having price changes, but gradually and reasonably, as we will need to see and deal with the shortages in certain medicine. And we now have a plan to allow some changes in prices till the end of the year in order to have these medicine available once again and not face any shortages in medicine. What's happening now is that until new batches are produced, it does take some time, but we are following up, and hopefully within the next few weeks this issue will be resolved. For our last question. Yesterday in front of the Parliament he spoke about the domestic production, which is very important for sustainable development here in Egypt. Does this mean within the next 3 years we will see a move to assist some of the factories that have faced some financial troubles in order for them to increase domestic production? Here in Egypt we have industry and the issue of these factories that are struggling. We have studied this issue and we found out that the factories that are struggling or shutting down are usually split to two issues. Some factories from the beginning had problems with their procedures. So after they started their company or their industry, they became bankrupt. This has nothing to do with the economic challenges. This is some of the factories or industries that shut down as a result of problems with preparation phase, etc., or the running of the factory. The second issue, which is another side where factories were going, however, because of the challenges from the global economy, they struggle to continue their production processes. So these are the ones we are dealing with, trying to assist and get them back on their feet. For example, these factories have loans from banks and they have become bankrupt, so they cannot pay back their loans. Hence, the banks will not finance them once again. So we try to interfere or intervene to allow them to get more loans from the banks and at lower rates as well, interest rates. So as a state, we are trying to pay off some of these loan rates in order to help such industries and get them back on their feet. But more importantly, the factories that we actually need inside Egypt. We need 152 investment opportunities. If these possibilities and industries are able to produce enough domestically, they will give us back at least 25 million US dollars from our import. And we will be focusing on these industries over the next 3 years to allow them to produce and save from our import balance. And I've said this before, and His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also spoke about this. We have to deal with the gap between our needs. The best way is to have more productivity in Egypt, and this is very important only if we focus on the different sectors in society, specifically industries.
عمرو خليفة جريدة الأخبار. دلوقتي يا فندم حضرتك كنت اتكلمت في منتهى الشفافية في موضوع أزمة الكهرباء، حددت إن هي هيتم حل الأزمة في الأسبوع الثالث من الشهر الحالي. لكن النهارده اتفاجئنا إن في مواقع كتير وبعض الصفحات
We spoke about the electricity challenge, and today, and you said that the electricity issue will be solved by the 3rd week of the month. However, we saw some news saying that today would be the final day of electricity cuts. Actually, what we did, we are hoping by the 3rd week of this month, we are hoping to have practical examples on the ground. If we stop rationing, how much we will need to buy. To deal if we don't ration electricity. So just what I asked for is to see today, if we do not cut electricity, exactly how much we will need, just to know how much we actually consume in a day of fuel. But we want to know for sure how much fuel is needed to see how much we actually need in order to plan ahead, so we know how much we need to import exactly by ton even. But this does not mean that electricity rationing has stopped, but today was just a practical example to see how much electricity we will need and how much we need with regards to fuel availability, God willing. Right, thank you very much. God willing, we will meet constantly through these different press conferences. Thank you very much.